Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my October wrap up. It's been a minute since I sat down in front of the camera. Life struggles, anxiety struggles, motivational struggles, it's all there. And that kind of shows in my reading this month too. Pregnancy struggles, add that into the mix because that's pretty much the reason why I'm going to assume that I've just been slumping motivationally this entire month. That's not to say I didn't get any reading done, and I'll dive into that in a minute. But first and foremost, I'm probably not going to do a November TBR this month. I really don't need one. Also, NaNoWriMo is in November, so I'm trying to focus on that and hopefully doing NaNoWriMo for the first time successfully in a while. It's been a minute. I haven't finished a Nano since 2016, and I would like to actually do something with Nano because I actually have a plan. I've plotted the whole thing out, which is weird. If I've been motivated in any direction, I guess it's towards that. So yeah, no TBR this month. I'm just gonna start this video telling you guys not to expect a TBR video separately because it's not coming. But I did get a fair bit of reading done, so let's dive into the stats real quick. So in the month of October, I did manage to finish 9 books for a total of 3,343 pages. Unfortunately, only one of those was an arc, but you know, well, we'll take it. Like I said, I don't think that it's necessarily a reading slump, but I've been very focused on a specific set of genre, and I guess that will show when I get into that later on. But first, let's talk about my series. For my series stats, I started 3 new series. I read 4 books in continuing series or series that I've already started, and I read 2 standalones. One of those books I did read physically, and all the rest I read on ebook just because that's been the most accessible format for me to get into. But again, I'll talk about some exemptions from that when I get to the end. All 9 books that I read this month were in the romance genre. So yeah, that's what I fall back to when I feel like I am starting to slump, and that is absolutely the case this particular month. I read 9 books, all romance, mostly romantic suspense. There's probably a couple of others that were not, but yeah. In terms of variety, I don't think that we're gonna find a whole lot of it in this particular wrap up. As far as the star ratings that I gave, I did give 3 of them 5 stars, 5 of them 4 stars, and 1 of them a 3-star. And then also, I'm not going to bother popping a graphic up for these last 2, but all 9 of them were full-length novels, and all 9 of them were intended for adult. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right into the majority of it because it's going to shorten this wrap up quite a bit, but 5 of these books were all by the same author. 4 of them are in the same series. 1 of them is kind of a continuation of a series that I was reading earlier on, and that's the arc that I read. But the very first book that I read in October is Vanishing Hour by Laura Griffin. Y'all know I'm terrible with names, so I'm not going to bother getting into the names of the characters in this, but essentially you follow a woman who is a lawyer, and she's also working with a search and rescue dog that she inherited from her recently deceased father. She has learned all of the tactics for search and rescue. Because of her efforts with search and rescue, she kind of stumbles onto a cold case investigation, and that leads her down a rabbit hole of kind of trying to figure out what happened to this girl who was missing, and falling in love with one of the members of the local police force, I guess. I think he's a detective. It was really, really good. I ended up giving it 5 stars. This is book 2 in the Texas Murder Files by Laura Griffin. I did read the first one back in like April or May or something. I think it's called Midnight Dunes, and I really enjoyed that one as well. One thing that I really like about Laura Griffin's writing, this is very niche. I know that a lot of people don't really care about this kind of thing, but it matters to me because it is my profession, and she actually does a very, very good job of getting the forensics right. This is not something that I have seen very often in any kind of media, and as I am a forensic scientist, it's really nice and refreshing to see a portrayal of it in just a romantic suspense. I mean, it's not like this is a hard-hitting true crime or mystery or anything like that. This is a romantic suspense novel in which the author clearly did her research because the techniques that she talks about, the science that she talks about, it's all 100% correct for the most part. There's a couple of things where she pushes it here or there, but overall, I don't really have anything to complain about, and that's not something that I can say very often when it comes to forensics in the media, and she did a great job. So because of that, it actually led me into wanting to read more of her books, and I started down her Tracers series. This is a series that specifically follows the people of the, I want to say the Delphi group? I don't remember what the name of the lab is. It's a fictional lab. It's supposed to be a private lab in Texas. that because it is private is much better funded than the state or local crime labs. This is generally not a lie. That is something that actually happens in real life. And occasionally you do get private labs that are much better equipped to handle things at a quicker pace than local police forces. And so you follow various members of like people who work at that lab or are connected to it in some way, and how they solve crimes or are targeted in crimes, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to do a quick run through of the titles. The first three are Untraceable, Unspeakable, and Unforgivable, followed by book 4, which is called Snapped. Each of these, I'm not really going to go into it specifically unless you guys are interested. You can go and see. I gave you the general premise, but they do follow people connected to this private forensics lab in different ways. The first one follows a PI who's really, really good with computer forensics, and the group, the forensics lab, does end up kind of recruiting her at the end of it to be in their e-crimes unit investigating that kind of thing. The second one, Unspeakable, follows a woman who is trying to become an FBI profiler. She's already an FBI agent, but her dream is to go into the behavioral crimes unit. They are investigating a string of missing women in Texas, and she ends up falling in love with one of the main donors that made this private lab possible. And then the third one, Unforgivable, follows one of the DNA forensic scientists that works at the lab. I don't necessarily know if she's in charge of the DNA unit, but she is very highly regarded in it, and she does become targeted in some of the crimes. And then finally, Snapped follows a woman who we first saw in the first book. She ends up becoming a receptionist at this forensics lab and becomes embroiled in her own investigation when she's in the wrong place at the wrong time, and ends up being one of the survivors of a mass shooting at the college that she's trying to take classes at. So a large part of my reading this month was kind of taken up by Laura Griffin, just because I really am enjoying reading her books. They're easy to read. I don't think that fun is the right word, or like reading material is the right word, but they are giving me very strong Karen Rose vibes, and you guys know how we feel about Karen Rose on this channel. So I think that Laura Griffin is making her way up my list of favorite romantic suspense authors. If any of that sounded interesting to you, definitely go check her out. I don't think that she gets the recognition that she really deserves, because the research that has gone into her forensics is really, really admirable and definitely makes the experience a lot more enjoyable for me. All 4 of the books in the Tracer series I ended up giving 4 out of 5 stars to. They just don't feel quite as fleshed out as the Texas Murder Files ones do. I think it's because they're some of Laura Griffin's earliest books, and while they are enjoyable, they do have some flaws here and there, and I do enjoy the Texas Murder Files series as a whole a little bit more so far, because it is pretty brand new. But yeah, they all got 4 out of 5 stars from me. The next book I read practically in one sitting, and completely unexpectedly, because I genuinely hadn't really planned on reading this anytime soon. That is Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. I picked this up while we were driving home, which is about a 10-hour drive for us, so I had plenty of reading time on my hands, and I think I read it all in that one sitting. I adored this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. If you don't know, this is an age gap, kind of taboo romance, in which the main character, she gets released from work a little bit early, and she can't get a hold of her boyfriend to come and pick her up, so she decides to go and waste some time at the local movie theater watching a horror marathon. And while she's there, she kind of starts talking to this guy, and they really, really hit it off, and as they leave the movie theater, she finds out that it's actually her boyfriend's estranged father. Due to certain events, she and her boyfriend end up actually having to move in with him, and they are fighting their attraction for each other. I will preface this and say that there is no cheating in this, which I really, really personally like. No cheating on behalf of our 2 main characters, anyway, I guess I should specify. Which is the one thing that kind of always holds me off from these types of romances, and the way that it played out, I really, really enjoyed it. It's definitely going to be a reread for me. If you guys are interested in that at all, or even if you're not interested, it's age gap done really, really well, and that's not generally a thing that I am into, and I really, really liked it in this instance. So I'm probably the last person on BookTube that reads romance that hasn't read Birthday Girl yet, but if you haven't, consider this the opportunity to do so, because I did really like it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I've read Penelope Douglas before. I'm going to read Penelope Douglas in the future. She's definitely up there on my list of Kindle Unlimited authors. The next book that I read is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is the only book that I read physically last month, and it's because I ended up picking this up at the very last minute when I walked by it at Costco. I've been hearing amazing things about this. Emily Henry did a great job with Beach Read for me, and this was absolutely no different. I adored this book. I read it probably in one night, I want to say. You follow a book editor and a literary agent who have met in the past and they have butted heads in the past, so they aren't necessarily each other's best friends. However, they do end up finding themselves vacationing in the same very small North Carolina town for very different reasons, and because of that, they're kind of thrust together over and over again, and they end up developing a relationship. And it's a really cute, adorable romance. The sisterly relationship in this I absolutely adored. I'm very, very close with my own sister, so that kind of hit a special note within me, but I loved everything about this. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I, again, am probably the last person on BookTube to have read Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I still have to read People We Meet on Vacation, but as far as Beach Read and Book Lovers go, she's 2 out of 2 for me, so I don't really see People We Meet on Vacation going any differently. Next up is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This is a college sports romance involving a figure skater and a hockey player. They are both, I'm pretty sure, like Division I athletes. Like, she plans to go to the Olympics and he's trying to get like onto a professional hockey team. And because of certain events, they end up kind of pulling a cutting edge situation in which they're forced together to practice in the same rink. And he actually has to practice alongside her and learn a little bit of ice skating as her figure skating partner when hers becomes injured. And that's not really the focus of the story, which I really like. I mean, I have enough cutting edge. I didn't really need any more cutting edge. I do love those movies though, but it was adorable. I loved everything about this. The author does a really, really good job of subverting your expectations when it comes to your stereotypical romance cliches. Anytime that you thought it was going to lead down a miscommunication trope hole, it definitely went the other way, and that is something that I really appreciated. The relationship was so cute. The way that they handled all sorts of things that are kind of dubious in romance novels, like situations involving consent and self-care and standing up for yourself when somebody isn't treating you the way that they should be. All of those things were handled absolutely beautifully, in my opinion, and I loved this book. I wish that I had a physical copy of it. I did get it off of KU, but it was fantastic. It's going to be a reread for me in the future. The relationship in it was just so sweet. It was so perfect. It was steamy still, even through all of that. It was a great read. And then, not to end it on a bad note, but the last book that I read was Royal Player by Katie McCoy. This I ended up only giving 3 stars. I had kind of been in the mood for like a royalty romance situation. In this one, you follow a girl who has traveled to London with one of her best friends. They have a job serving tea at Wimbledon for as long as Wimbledon lasts as a summer job. And because of this, she kind of ends up meeting one of the princes. Not the one in line to the throne, but his younger brother in a very Prince Harry type situation. They kind of meet and are immediately attracted to each other, and he just kind of dives right in and starts wanting to date her and be with her and blah, 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 blah. It was very short. It was probably less than 300 pages. It was just, there were a lot of things that I don't think were handled particularly well. In a complete opposite of Icebreaker, the miscommunication trope was full force here, and we all know how I feel about that. It just, I don't know, it had its great parts, but it had its not great parts, so it ended up getting 3 stars. It was okay. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. I do have an honorable mention. I did start reading Atlas 6 like I said I was going to, but for some reason that book is just not clicking with me. I haven't fully given in to DNFing it yet. I do want to get the audiobook and finish it that way, I think, because reading it ebook or physically is really not doing it for me. I do like where the plot is going, and I love the dark academia vibes that it's giving. I don't really know why it's not clicking with me. Maybe I should try reading it physically. I have only been reading the ebook form so far, so we'll see if switching up the format kind of helps that out at all. I don't think that it's bad in any way. I am enjoying it when I do pick it up. I just don't have the motivation to actually pick it up, so there's that. Another honorable mention is that I did start rereading The Way of Kings last week. This time, fully annotating is my plan because I have not done that to any Sanderson so far, and I really do want to start with the Stormlight Archive. This is only the second time that I've read it, and I'm barely started. I'm on like chapter 1, and I am picking up things that are really interesting to go back and see on reread now that I have finished the entire series. So I'm really enjoying that, but my plan is to just take it slow and read it, slowly, honestly. I'm not pressuring myself to finish it within a month. I'm not doing any of that, but I am letting myself just read a chapter, annotate it, think about my thoughts, write down my thoughts, so on and so forth, and I'm enjoying that a lot. And then the very last book that I have to talk about is Juniper Unraveling by Carrie Lake. This is a book that I really just picked up on a whim. I've barely started it, so I really don't have much to say about it right now. Somebody recommended it to me because they also enjoyed the Razorland trilogy by Anne Aguirre, which is right over there. It's right here. Which is my favorite, like, zombie-ish dystopian YA series of all time. I like it better than The Hunger Games. I like it better than Divergent. I don't think that it gets enough attention, but it's fantastic. And somebody recommended this Juniper Unraveling book to me, which is like an adult kind of take on it. I don't really know exactly what's making it adult so far in comparison to that, but again, I'm like maybe 2 chapters in, so I don't really have much to say about it, but I am intrigued. We'll see how it goes. If it doesn't grab my attention soon, I'm probably just going to kind of soft DNF it and pick it up later when I'm feeling more along the lines of reading a dystopian, but as of right now, I mean, I'm like a chapter in. I don't really have much in the way of thoughts. So that is all of the books that I read, am reading, have started reading since the beginning of October. Like I said, I'm really not going to be planning a November TBR, what with NaNoWriMo and all of the other stuff we've got going on with family coming in at the end of the month, and then December is going to be crazy too because that is when we are due with this baby. So other than that, I guess that's it for this video today, guys. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as it really helps out my channel. Down in my description box, you're going to see links to my Goodreads, my Twitter, and my Instagram in case you guys wanted to follow me on any of those. But that's it for me today, guys, so I'll talk to you in my next one. Bye!